Okay.
All right, I got 6 on the dot. I want to thank you all for being here at the inaugural meeting of the North Augusta Development Code Audit and Rewrite Project. This inaugural meeting of our steering committee. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to help us, we hope, achieve an excellent project by the end. I guess we should probably go down the list. We want to do welcome and introductions. Does the Orion team, do y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. We will, Libby. And welcome everybody to the meeting. The agenda, you had an agenda sent out earlier. It's pretty simple and straightforward agenda to open up our work together on the code rewrite for North Augusta. And you may reference it, not necessary, but provided to kind of keep us on track. And that's the very thing that's first on the agenda is welcome and introductions. And then we'll go through a project overview after that. And then there's a survey that you participated in intended to prompt some discussion. And so we'll spend a few minutes there and then conclude the meeting with next steps and logistics of what we're hoping to accomplish together. So our group is really excited to work with North Augusta on the project. We are Orion Planning and Design, and we do essentially 3 things. We do comprehensive planning for cities and counties and other sorts of jurisdictions across the country. We do development codes, which is this particular project, auditing development codes, writing development codes, aligning development codes to a plan. And then we do a substantive amount of work in private entitlements and development designing neighborhoods and other kinds of private things. That's who we are. If you're curious about more of that, we're certainly on the internet. This slide will just give you an indication of sort of our spread. Our group is consists of 6 partners, and we're in Wyoming, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia are our primary locations. And Montana. You'll see Montana. And you'll see the breadth of the work there. Tonight, joining me is Carol Ray. I'll ask Carol to introduce herself in just a moment. She's advancing the slides because of my problem internet connection. So if we get slightly out of sync, please overlook that. If you want to know a little bit, curious about our work or some of the stuff we've done, we're on the internet. There's a portfolio there, and you can kind of get to know us there. My name is Bob Barber, and I am in the Memphis area, and I've been with our group since its founding about a decade ago. We've been going at it I spent a long time in a small town as a planning director, and we've been doing Orion consulting work for about the last decade. Really looking forward to working with you. Carol, would you introduce yourself and perhaps pass it off to Cheryl?
Yeah, and I echo what Bob said. We're really excited about this project. I'm originally from Charlotte, and I have in my past been the planning director for the city of Monroe, which is just east of Charlotte, about 14 miles, and the assistant director of planning and development for York County, which is just south of Charlotte. You guys are probably very familiar with it, but county seat there is Rock Hill. And then I had my own consulting firm, as did Bob. And Bob's experience as a planning director was in a town that is a suburb I don't know if it's an inner or outer ring suburb of Memphis. So he's very used to that type of environment. And we started this company, as Bob said, in 2011. And actually, it's been almost 10 years ago that we actually began the process of creating the company. But we all came to the company with a wealth of experience in both the public and the private sector. And then I moved to Huntsville, Alabama. So I live here in Huntsville. Cheryl?
Sure. I'm Cheryl Matheny. I'm with the Matheny Burns Group. We have 2 offices. I work out of the Lexington office in Lexington, South Carolina. And I was the county planner and then the manager of planning and GIS for 14 years at Lexington County before I got with Gloria Burns and we formed our company in 1998. So we've been around for a long time. We primarily work in South Carolina, but we have other projects. We work with Orion and some other folks in other areas of the country, but we focus on South Carolina. So I think we're the South Carolina expertise, although Carol works with me a whole lot in South Carolina as well. So we partner a great deal. We work, as it says, we also do a lot of grants and resource development. And we do have some expertise in geographic information systems, which is another area that we will be participating in this project. So, but our main focus of our work is usually in comprehensive planning and in land use regulation. So that's where we come from on this project.
And we have, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Yeah, I was just going to say, not on our call, but a member of our team is Ernie Bowman with Tool Design. He's an engineer, and he will provide us engineering support on issues that would relate to that. And we will have some other Orion partners involved. Allison Malk is in Montana. She will be involved, and then we have 2 designers that are in St. Simons that will have some role at some point in the project. So the next slide, we're obviously not doing a plan. We're just trying to set this project in the context of the planning process. So as you look across the 5-step process of creating a plan, the first 3 would be related to developing a comprehensive plan. And then when we get into step 4, we're talking about implementation and alignment of regulatory elements to the plan itself, not just regulation, but policies and projects to regulation. So way we understand the project as we enter into this with you is that we are aligning, we are working to rewrite a code that is responsive and aligns to North Augusta's planning goals and planning aspirations. So that's enough of us talking. We're very interested in the committee and who's serving on the committee. These are the names, I believe, Libby, I believe my list is correct, but probably be easiest just to go down the list. Please introduce yourself to us. I don't know if you know each other or not, but please introduce yourselves to the group, perhaps what you do, maybe, your relationship to North Augusta. I believe Eddie's first.
Well, are we going in order on the list?
I'd probably be easiest.
Yes, I'm Eddie Butler. Lifelong resident of North Augusta. I own and operate automotive repair facilities in the area. And in a former life, I spent 20 years in county government. So I have some familiarity with the development standards in that respect. And glad to be a part of the group.
Thank you, Eddie. What was your work with county government?
I was a county commissioner, county councilman.
Cool. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Bob Clark, planning commissioner, retired chemical engineer, moved to North Augusta in 1977.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Dr. Crawford?
Hi, I'm Christine Crawford, and I'm on the Planning Commission. I am trained as an epidemiologist and was a former McDonald's franchisee.
Did I hear you say you're an epidemiologist?
Yes, I am.
So that this is your time. This is your era.
Not, unfortunately, it is not. It is very frustrating as an epidemiologist to watch all of this, to be honest.
Well, now we know who to look to when it comes to asking questions about safety. Yeah.
Thank you. Interestingly enough, Dr. Crawford, the father of epidemiology, Dr. John Snow, London, about 200 and some odd years ago, was a key player in the modern city planning movement, and that's a story for another day. We can discuss it hopefully when we meet in person. Rhett Harbison.
Yeah, I'm Rhett Harbison. I'm a landscape architect in CSRA, Augusta, North Augusta. I've been living in North Augusta for about 8 years now. I've been a lifelong resident of Augusta.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. McGee.
Yes, my name is David McGee. I'm currently stand on city council here in North Augusta. I have a construction company, general contractor in the area, and I've lived in North Augusta for 13 years, and just excited about being a part of this steering committee.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Ms. Pearson.
Yes, hey, I'm Elizabeth Pearson. Third generation here in North Augusta. I'm a general contractor and a business owner here in the city of North Augusta, too.
Thank you, Mr. Sam.
Good evening. My name's Dave Sam. I've lived in the CSRA for 50 years, the last 28 of which here in North Augusta. I worked for a major manufacturer in the area for 30 years. I worked for the city in the Parks and Rec part-time for 10. I have 2 adult children that graduated from North Augusta High, and I would consider myself an interested citizen looking forward to helping out.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Toole.
Hi, I'm Kevin Toole. I'm also a member of City Council here in North Augusta, native North Augusta. I've lived here most of my life. Moved away after college for a few misguided years, but came back. And I'm also a commercial banker in the area.
Very good. Tara Carroll.
Hi, I'm Tara Carroll. I've spent 20 years in the chamber industry, the last 8 years as president of the North Augusta Chamber of Commerce.
Excellent. Thank you. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Moody. I'm the assistant city administrator here in North Augusta. I have lived in North Augusta for a year.
Awesome. Libby?
Yeah, I'm Libby Hodges. I've met a few of you in person and have worked with several of you on projects. I'm the Planning and Development Director here for the City of North Augusta. I've been in this position for a little over 2 years now. It's gone really, really quickly. I have long family connections to the area. Just to explain how I got back here. I live currently in my great grandparents' house in North Augusta that they built in 1939. So we have long family history in the area, and it's interesting to be back.
That's great. And then last, but I hope not least, is Mr. Zeeser.
Yeah, hey, Tom Zeeser. I'm the Director of Engineering and Public Works. So I'm Libby's counterpart on the engineering side of development. Been in this position for 22 years, and so I spend almost as much time in the code as Libby does.
Okay, thanks, Tom. A great round of introductions. Appreciate that very much. It's quite helpful for us to kind of just get even if it's just a sentence or two, your relationship to the community and kind of the role you're playing, and to understand the committee and who we're working with. And so we'll get to know one another more as we move along. The next thing we had scheduled on the agenda is the obvious thing was what we're here for, is to conduct the project, and to look at a project overview and to give an orientation as to what it is we're actually doing. So, Carol?
Yeah. So, as you're probably aware, this is a two-part project. We have an audit that we're going to do at the front end of the project, and then we have the code rewrite. And our firm has always conducted an audit as part of a code rewrite. Sometimes it's very informal, and nothing formal is produced to explain the audit results. It's just incorporated into the code. But we have been increasingly asked to do a more formal audit, where we really look at the code, the planning documents, other policies that relate to the code. We look at your processes. We talk to people in the community who are familiar with the code, or who are impacted by the code, to find out what is or isn't working. We do quite a bit of work in that part of the process. And when we come out of that part of the process, we have a document that can serve as a guide for the update. That's basically given us the detail that we need, for the most part, to have to just start marching through the chapters and bringing that code up to date and in line in a way that makes sense for the city of North Augusta. As part of that, we all have key roles and tasks. Now, the slide that you see in front of you is just, I snapshotted an illustration from the proposal, and I don't know if all of you have received a copy of that, but basically the main roles, the city of North Augusta has roles such as overseeing the project and the logistics, and making sure that the information is available for us to look at, helping with getting the proposed documents through the adoption process, helping with public engagement, and, like I said, meeting logistics, helping us with meetings like this, or hopefully in the future, face-to-face meetings. The city of North Augusta, of course, is the key player, but they did hire us. And so let me just tell you what our individual firms' roles are going to be. And there's a little bit of a blur, because we're all, to some degree, going to be involved in the audit and the rewrite. Orion Planning and Design is the lead firm. And so we will be taking the lead on all of these elements, the project management, outreach and facilitation, stakeholders, best practice evaluation, design and graphics, etc. But Cheryl Matheny and Matheny Burns is going to come in right along with us in that analysis and in the rewrite, and especially and there is some limited zoning mapping that is going to be done. We are anticipating updates to the zoning map, and Cheryl is going to be taking the lead on that. Tool is going to be involved as needed for helping to assess the way that the code works with utilities. Of course, we have you, Tom, who can also definitely tell us that, but they're going to be there to help if we need them to evaluate anything. And also, if and when the city decides that the appendices need to be updated, they will play a very big role in that. But that's actually not part of this project, not at this point. But you as a steering committee also have key roles and tasks. These were elements that we pointed out in the proposal itself. This is how we typically work with steering committees, where we depend on you to provide insight and direction. So you'll get many of these meetings will be us asking you questions to get your feedback that then provide us insight into the community or direction for the project. We really need you to review drafts when they're ready for that review, and to give us feedback based on your experiences and your relationship to the community, how you think the new code is going to function. Where there are conflicts between different reviewers, and that we've never had a project that doesn't have that, whether it's different members of the steering committee, or it's we have two different public workshops, and the public workshop is A is saying do this, and public workshop B is saying do the opposite. Or more commonly, our stakeholders have conflicts and are conflicting interests. Our builders may want one thing, and those who are concerned about the environment or concerned about business or any other feature may want something different. And all of those interests can be very legitimate, but we, as your consulting team, we can make recommendations, but we can't determine what your community priorities are in the sense of what should outweigh, what is the most important thing to address. And so we'll look to you to help us resolve those conflicts and say, okay, well, in this instance, we think this is the priority and this is the way the code should be written, the direction we should take. So once we've gone through this and we review the drafts, or even before the drafts are created, one of the key roles you can also play is an advocate for the code rewrite. That doesn't mean you have to go knock on doors and pass out flyers or anything like that, but simply, as you're talking to your friends, neighbors, family, to your business groups, or whatever stakeholder group you might recommend. At least talk about it in the sense that, hey, this is going to be a good process for the community. It's a self-evaluation, and ultimately it will end in a code that, as Bob said, aligns with your goals and priorities from the community, and it will help you. Because as we all probably know, zoning and land development regulations are two of your comprehensive plan's most important implementation tools. And if they're out of line with your code, then your community is not going to be able to realize the vision that you've laid out in those plans. So another role that you play is you may make periodic presentations to the commission and council. I don't know. That is something to put out there, or to the public workshop, you may assist with those. So there are those roles. Libby, you did send out a document to the steering committee introducing them to this role. Do you have anything you want to add?
I think the important thing is just that everybody come in as active participants. We're here to listen. I may be helping to run the project, but this is not just my project. This is everybody's project, especially on the steering committee. And we will have multiple, public input opportunities as we go along. I think a lot of people are really concerned about that. But it's coming. It's going to be a little bit challenging, with the virus going around as it is. But we're gonna try our very best, and that's where I'm going to lean on the committee a bit as well, is to help us get people out and help us get the right people in the room to have these discussions and to look at some of our options.
Excellent. Yes, and the committees can also play a role in helping us design those different types of engagement activities, and Bob's going to go over those, but first he's going to talk a little bit about the schedule.
Yes, just briefly to kind of show you how all that, how the proposed code works out. You'll see the slide there indicating the project in 4 phases, and we're on step 1 of 1 now. Kicking off with tonight's meeting, you'll see phase 1 and 2 is essentially the audit. As Carol mentioned, there's 2 phases. There's the audit, and then there's the actual rewrite. So we'll spend these first few months conducting that audit over into January, February timeframe. And then after the first of the year, we will start moving into the actual code rewrite based upon the results of the audit. And then you see the full schedule of the project is to run just slightly over a year, to complete from step one through an adoption process will be just over a year time frame. So that's the basic flow of the project. Now, at certain points in the project, by the way, let me call out one thing, Carol, if you'll back up to that slide again. You'll see those first red dots up in phase 2. There'll be an on-site meeting. That'll be our first visit to the community. We'll try to get a sense of that date during tonight's call. We'll get a target date, hopefully. But that'll be our first visit to the community. All right. So throughout the process, you can go to the next one, Carol. There'll be some stakeholder engagement. There'll be some public engagement. And this is just I won't go through this list, but this bullet pointed list presents a combination of methods from online methods to, actual public stakeholder workshops and various presentations so that we can engage the community of North Augusta throughout the process. And so we have that public participation plan before Libby now for review and comment, and we'll make sure that that the community is well engaged and aware of what's happening as we go through the process. So that lays the foundation for the work. We've covered who we are. We've covered the committee's role. We've covered what the project entails. And then we wanted to engage you in some level of discussion tonight. I don't know how cold this is to the committee or how fresh it is, but we did want to see if we could engage you in some discussion or at least reflect back to you what you were thinking about the North Augusta Development Code and the process we're about to embark in. So we developed that little survey, a sample survey. I think it was 10 questions. It resulted in what we thought were some interesting results, which you are about to see. We didn't get total response. That's okay. I can't. Carol, did we close the survey? I think we closed it now.
I haven't closed it.
Okay, so the survey's still open. If you want to jump in after the meeting, the few of you who weren't able to respond, please feel free to do so. But based on the responses we got, let's look at those results real quickly. Carol, you want to take the first go?
I will, and these are just simply in order that they appeared in the survey. So if you took the survey, it should look very familiar to you. So the first question was, how do you relate? What is your relationship to the code? So as you can see, most of you were city staff or other. I think some of the others were business owners, for example. But this gives you an idea of what the steering committee, how you're composed. The second question,
Yeah, I was just going to comment. It's quite a nice cross section of the committee, from elected officials, planning commissioners, citizen staff. It's a nice cross section.
Yes.
Good composition. Go ahead.
Which statement best describes your knowledge of the content in the North Augusta Development Code, including the specific standards and processes, or at least the parts you use most often? Most of you felt that you know the code somewhat well. that you're familiar with sections or provisions that apply to whatever role that you have or however you use the code, but you don't have a comprehensive knowledge. Actually, that's pretty good. We've had surveys like this in other communities where, there was very little knowledge of what's in the code. So this is a good start. And then some of you, of course, know the code very well. And then I think one of you said only know the code, know a little bit about the code. Again, if more of you answer this, it'll be interesting to see how you add to or shift where those bars might be. How would you rank the importance of the following when it comes to regulating land use in buildings, where number 1 is the most important and number 5 is the least? Well, what SurveyMonkey does is it takes all of the answers and it creates an average score, if you will. And so you can see how it fell out here. Clarity edged out consistency and predictability, which edged out only slightly efficiency. Community support was less important. But that's good. I mean, we have found in our experience in working with communities and working in our own communities where we were planning directors, administering codes, that predictability and consistency were extremely important, as was clarity. Now, efficiency becomes important if people can't get through the process quickly for whatever reason. But anyway, this was not a surprise to us, but it's good to know. It gives us a snapshot. It tells us a little bit more about what we might be looking at when we start diving into the code. Bob, you want to take this one?
Sure. How would you rate the North Augusta Development Code in these following factors? So you're ranking them. The question before was how important are these things, and now how does your code stack up in these elements? And it's interesting. The least important on the prior question is the most important here. You think it's supported by the community. And there is a degree of clarity in the code, and there is predictability in the code. Those are your highest ranking factors. I'm not quite sure what that says to us, but that's the way you scored the North Augusta Code based on this simple question.
Now, Bob, I'll say, we usually do a survey like this, maybe more expansive, but we use some of these same questions and we send it out to the stakeholder groups. And it's very interesting. It really starts to give us a strong picture of how the people who use the code or who are impacted by the code on a regular basis really view that code. And that can be very valuable in terms of us getting into the code and understanding it better. The following planning themes in the North Augusta Comprehensive Plan are planning themes in the North Augusta Comprehensive Plan. Rate your level of concern for them as they relate to future development in North Augusta. There is an other category, and I thought I had a slide with what those other
those next two questions on the other category are not applicable. So you're just viewing the first the principles themselves.
Okay. So efficient, high quality services, robust parks, recreation, and greenway network, and then a vibrant downtown waterfront and stable and diverse walkable neighborhoods. Those are all very, very important themes, I'm sure. And, they need to be reflected in your code. So we'll spend some time looking at that. Bob?
Yes. Rank the importance of the following roles. So these are roles that a development code plays in the community building process. And you're ranking the importance of these various factors in your opinion. and protecting the rights of property owners. We probably could, it is the highest ranked, we probably could ask a secondary question to that. What does that mean? Does that mean protecting from nuisance or conflict, protecting me, or protecting my right to do as I wish with my property? So there's some clarification we could dive into there. I'm assuming the first. And then you'll see the rest of the rankings there with the least concern there of creating a quality community. I'm not sure that really says anything other than you rank these other things above that particular factor. Here.
Okay. And then this one, as a weighted average, how strongly do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Where agree was a 1 and disagree was a 5. So that this is a case of where the lower the bar, the better in terms of agreement, the more agreement there was. So the agreement was around the statements. The regulations within the development code are consistently applied to similar parcels of land and applicants. And the development code produces predictable results with minimal uncertainty for developers and citizens. We'll be looking at that. And again, if more of you take the survey, and then if we use questions like this to survey the stakeholders, it'll be interesting to see, compare and contrast the different stakeholder groups to see where there might be some agreement and disagreement as to what is most important in the code and how the code is performing in terms of these statements. So, for example, now it looks like there's a lot of agreement about consistency and predictability, but it could very well be the total opposite when we run it out there and get more responses from a broader group of people. And those types of things are very interesting to see as they evolve. Here we got a couple of open-ended questions I want to go over really quickly. But before we get out of the survey, I did want to say that as soon as everybody or most people have responded to the survey, we'll dump it in an Excel spreadsheet and make it available. We'll give it to Libby, and it can be available to all of you so you can see the raw data.
Yeah. So the next question, as Carol said, was an open-ended question with interesting responses. There are only two more. This question and there's one more after this. We ask you to list in your knowledge and experience what are the areas of the code that cause the most conflicts or misunderstandings. And so you see the list of open-ended responses there, the sign regulations, consistency of the words used in the code, neighborhood preservation overlay. The overlay scenario was listed a couple of times. There's just a general comment, land use and zoning. And then I'm not sure what the 14, 8, 13, 5, and so forth signified on that final bullet point. Then go to the next slide, Carol. You'll see the remainder of those open-ended answers. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. This was the question on who do you consider your peer communities in terms of comparing your planning and development scenario to. And you see the list there. Some communities identified: Lexington, Greenwood, Beaufort, Charleston, etc., Greenville. The expression that we shouldn't have peers, that we're our own community, and that's totally understood. Aiken County, etc. Interesting responses. We just want to get a sense from in that question who in your mind are there's always sort of a benchmark other place, and where are those other places that might be in your consciousness as you deal with community development in North Augusta? And then finally, the response we ask, which of these statements do you agree with? And it is in relation to this comparison thing. And by far and away, the most respondents said that North Augusta should really not concern itself too much with what's going on in peer communities, that it should concern itself with its, North Augusta's goals and planning goals and objectives. So you have any comment on those final few slides, Carol?
No, I think you did a good job. Does the steering committee have any questions or comments or insights?
Anything, I'll expand that question a little bit. Anything surprising there, or is there anything that strikes you, that resonates with you, that strikes you as odd or different, or any comments on what you're seeing? And we understand you're just now seeing it.
I'll speak.
Yes, please.
Some of them were pleasant surprises, and I'm glad to see that some of the spikes that we had were kind of consistent from what I've heard from the public on some of the concerns. So to me, it sounds like this survey was pretty in line with a lot of what I've heard from the community.
Yes, thank you, Mr. McGee. Others? Any other?
I have a request.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the committee completing the survey. Can you all send this same survey to our planning commission members and our city council members as a whole? I think it'd be interesting to put their responses in the aggregate as well, to help us guide this process. Libby can send that out on your behalf, but I think that would be good information for the committee to have.
It's a good point, and we absolutely can do that. Yes.
Yeah, and the steering committee and the city council and the planning commission and staff are, we consider those three of the stakeholder groups too. So, one of the questions that we'll need to get input on is, who are the stakeholders that we need to have involved in this process? And there are two key places that they're involved, not just two key times, but two key places. And it's in both phases. One is early on in this trip that we're going to talk about, to help us understand what parts of the code we need to spend our time looking at, and the different policies and plans that we really need to focus on, because there's a lot there. I haven't seen it yet, but I know there's a lot of material. First of all, you got a very long code. So their help can be very, very valuable to us to make sure that we're not spending time, poring over something that is the community doesn't feel like it's a problem. We really want to spend our time looking where you're having some issues. So that's one way. And the other is when we get into drafting, vetting our drafts through the stakeholder groups, it can be very invaluable as well, because they can give us insights. They tend to be groups that have a lot of knowledge about the code. And so, but you guys can help us identify those stakeholder groups and who they should be. But yes, we can definitely.
Other observations on the survey, or any other aspect of what we've discussed so far? All right, hearing none, we will definitely get the survey expanded to the groups that just mentioned, and that won't be the only. There's other survey down the line that will deal with other users and internal and external users of the code. So it's a very important tool to help guide the process. So, to kind of draw us to somewhat of a conclusion, we got some next steps. So we laid out the project schedule. We're at step 1 of 1, and we're beginning the process tonight, initiated with you all. We've got some initial review to do. We have to absorb the North Augusta Comprehensive Plan, and we have to begin to get our heads around the code itself. So we'll start off with those reviews. And then another key milestone in the process, early in the process, is our initial site visit. So after we have ruminated on the plan and the code and gotten the project organized, we will show up with our team. That is scheduled to be about 60 days out from today, which are from the 1st of September, which puts us into early November. We don't have to peg the date. It'll be a couple of days. We will be in North Augusta over a couple of days. And I guess there's 2 questions to think about. We don't necessarily have to settle on a date at this moment, but is there a better time of the week than some other time? And what are the rhythms of North Augusta? Should we show up at the first of the week, or the middle of the week, or the end of the week? That's number 1 thing. And then number 2 things are, aside from COVID, are there any major obstacles to that first initial period in November for site visit?
I think I had shared with you guys earlier that we may have Jack-o'-lantern Jubilee, but that has been canceled, so we won't have any conflict with that at the end of October.
Yes, I recall that. Okay.
During your site visit.
So I'm going to. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
During your site visit, is it your intention to meet with council or attend a meeting or visit with planning commission or attend one of their meetings? Because we can help guide you on days for that, if you'd like to knock that out too.
We had not necessarily scheduled a council meeting. We did want to meet with key stakeholders in a series of roundtables. We want to tour the city and then have a steering committee meeting associated with that. So those were our key meetings. Now, if we can schedule around a council meeting or a planning commission meeting, and that fits in there, we can certainly do that.
I would point out, Bob, on this schedule, we do show the tour, and that's just a chance for us to orient ourselves to North Augusta. But really importantly, it's a chance for staff to show us where the code is doing a really good job of either incentivizing or mandating the type of development that the community wants, or where it's not doing a very good job, so that we can see what the geographic issues might be. And so we'll have a little tour of the community. And I should have pointed out that this process audit, that was in the proposal, but it was taken out. Libby, I think it was because it's been done recently.
I'm working on some other internal stuff that I think will complement that.
So just know that actually needs to be deleted from this schedule. So that's not part of it. But we will be talking about the process.
Right.
Right.
I just wanted to point out, reminder that the Masters is first week in November. I don't know if you want to accommodate that or pay attention to that. We don't know what it's going to be like around here, but that will definitely probably change your view of the area, because it's a different world during that week.
Yeah. What's the second week like?
Thanks for pointing that out. What we'll do is we'll meet with Libby and confer with Libby on what identifying the best dates for that time frame around the first part of November there. And thank you for pointing out the circumstances of that.
Yeah.
So there is that element we wanted to get on the table and just kind of generate the expectation that we will be there soon. Also, our communications, we would typically propose a process of communicating with Libby and then having that distributed by Libby, or in the alternative, there may be certain communications that would come directly from us, depending on the issue or the communication. So we want to make sure I assume all the emails are correct and we've got no problem there. That is essentially draws us to close to the end of our time together, right on time. And we really like to run meetings that work out on time. So let me just stop. We've got just a few minutes. If there are questions, concerns, or any just kind of open-ended comments from the committee or Libby or staff or anyone. Everybody, yeah, go ahead.
Everybody all at once, right? So we do need to establish a regular schedule with the steering committee, and we can do that coordinating kind of through email. I know I have several standing evening meetings that I'll kind of need to work around, and I know several of you do as well, especially the folks on my planning commission and city council as well. So we need to do that. We also the bylaw, the job description adopted by the city council requires us to create a leadership structure, and I'm pretty open to how we go about that. But it would be good for me if we have some discussion of that tonight.
Okay. I'm gonna step back from that since committee work. I'll step away or take a listening role now.
Does anybody have a preference towards any sort of leadership committee structure? Everybody at once? So I would envision this being just the person who, in case we call an emergency meeting or something, this would be a person, whoever's in a leadership position would be the person that would help me call everybody, email everybody, make sure everybody's showing up, would help coordinate as best we could.
I don't mind helping you, Libby, in any way I can.
Okay. Do we want to hold a informal vote, hands up vote? Do we have any preference for titles, or the job description leaves it pretty open-ended?
Would that be like a steering committee chair position?
That's the traditional kind of structure.
Okay, well, I'll nominate Elizabeth Pearson for the steering committee chair.
I'll second that.
Was that Mr. Butler that did the second?
Who was it?
Yes. It's
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unopposed? Okay. Good. Well, congratulations, Liz. I don't know if you expected to be.
Nope, not at all, but I'm okay with that.
Okay. Do any of you feel a need to have any other leadership roles, secretaries? I mean, I'm kind of serving in that capacity.
We might give out roles as they go.
There you go. Yeah, you reserve your right as chair to do what you need to do. Okay. I think it'd probably be more useful to kind of set a meeting schedule via email. It's probably going to be a little bit easier to coordinate with everybody. I may send out something like a doodle poll or something like that just to get a better idea about when everybody's available, if that works for everybody. General nods of agreement. Awesome. That's where video is helpful. So with that kind of out of the way, do y'all have any more questions for me or my role or where we go from here?
I think you're going to do a great job, Libby.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Pat myself on the back.
I'm telling you, you got this.
What we will do in the wake of this meeting is confer with Libby tomorrow and begin tying down the structure of this first phase one and our first phase one work plan, and in particular that site visit. So that's our next step, is for us to talk in the morning, Libby.
Okay. I'll be here.
Yes. It's wonderful to meet everyone, and we are excited about the project. We enjoy what we do. Your plan has some fantastic aspirational kinds of principles associated with it, and to help align the code and function well in North Augusta is something that we find very, very enjoyable and very rewarding, and we look forward to working with all of you.
Great. I do have one more question. Would it be helpful for me to send out links to all of our comprehensive plan, development code, all of that sort of stuff for you guys?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. And we have, if you're ever bored and need something to put you to sleep, we have tons of resources on our website just about generally how we do our business in the planning department. So there's lots of applications and, stuff that might give you some insight into how we function.
Great.
I see in the chat bar that just came up the email of the PowerPoint, and yes, we'll make that available to the group.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate y'all kind of taking the dive on GoToMeeting today.
Yeah, very good. Worked out well.
Yeah. I know it's not everybody's preferred method, but it really has been useful and indispensable during COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Libby.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right.
And